Hello, New Orleans, or wherever you may be. This is Tom Coates and Michelle Godin. Together we are Baldy and The Blonde. We are here every Wednesday at 4 o'clock here on WGSO, and you can catch us at baldyandtheblonde.com, where we post all of our old shows.
That's right. And if you're figuring it out how to listen on your phone, I am going to post a video because people have asked me to. But right now, just type in WGSO.com. And at the bottom of your screen, second from the left icon, you press that. It will open a new screen, and you will be listening live. So there you go. So what's going on, Tommy?
Well, the disclaimer at the start says that our opinions are not that of this station, but well, they should be.
Should be.
Because we're right about everything.
Absolutely. And look, if y'all don't think we're right, go check us. Because whatever we say, hey.
And we say a lot of crazy stuff, but it's what? True.
It's true. And that's the crazy thing about it.
We wish it weren't.
And what are we doing in this show? I've been trying to think of a short way to describe it. We listen to a lot of different stuff, so you don't have to. If you don't have time to listen to, Dan Bongino, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, and the lefties as well, we do. So we try as best we can to give you a bunch of clips so that you hear what they're saying in their own words, out of their own mouths. And then go, if something interests you and you want to take it further, go ahead. But this is, at the moment, has turned out to be a kind of an overview of a lot of information jammed into a little short show.
So much tyranny, so little time, right?
Yes, indeed.
All right, so what do you have for us today? What's on?
Well, today we're starting, in their own words, from the party that endlessly screeches about democracy. Because we've been bringing you a lot of their own words about democracy. For example, Kamala Harris. I mean, we could not have possibly shown you more how against free speech she is. And as is Kerry, even a justice on the Supreme Court, saying that she believes the plaintiffs are seeking to hamstring the First Amendment. So we're going to bring you some more examples of democracy from the left.
Well,
in their own words.
In their own words. Now, the first one is not exactly in his own words. This is while Tim Walz was governor.
Tampon Tim?
Tampon Tim. Well, actually, I guess he still is governor of Minnesota. This was back during the George Floyd riots back in Minneapolis. The date of this is May 30th, 2020. You're going to hear people hanging out on their porch, peacefully hanging out on their porch, residents of Minneapolis. It's a mom and a few teenage kids and I think maybe a neighbor or two hanging out on their porch during a curfew when it's legal to be outside on your private property.
Well, and it's legal to riot, apparently, too.
Yes. So they're just hanging out on their porch at their residence, well back from the street, and they see several dozen. They see a military Humvee coming down the street and several dozen National Guard. And let's hear how that went.
No, there's more. Look at this. They just keep coming.
Oh, go inside! Get inside! Get inside! Get inside! Get in your hotel! Let's go! Light them up!
Light them up. You heard that?
Light them up.
Inside now! Get in the house!
Get in!
Oh, God, that hurt. You good?
Are you okay?
So what they shot was paintballs.
Yeah.
But they fired on people who were just hanging out on their porch, legally, peacefully, lawfully.
That's Governor Tim who? Tampon Tim.
So those National Guard members could have been downtown where there was fires and people rioting, but they were on this quiet neighborhood street a couple miles from downtown, and you heard how that went down.
Well, remember that last week we played the clip of Mrs. Walz, who was delighting in the aroma of burning tires.
Yeah, love the smell of burning tires in the morning.
So what else you got to show
this
where
guy,
we are in America?
Guy's name is Brian Lazinski. Now, he's not directly affiliated with Tim Walz, but he was appointed by a committee that Walz helped put together to write a state curriculum for ethnic studies. This guy's name is Brian Lazinski. He published a book in 2022, and in May of that year, he did a Zoom video about the book he just released, and in it he says straight up that the U.S. is irreversibly racist and must be overthrown. And he's still on that committee. Here we go.
The first tenet of critical race theory is that the United States as constructed is irreversibly racist. So if the nation state as constructed is irreversibly racist, then it must be done with. It must be overthrown, right? And so we can't be like, oh no, critical race theory is just about telling our stories and divert. It's not about that. It's about overthrow. It's insurgent. And we need to be, I think, more honest with that. And it's funny that they don't understand critical race theory, but they actually tell some truth when they're like, yeah, it is anti-state. You can't be a critical race theorist and be pro-U.S.
Well,
okay, it is an anti-state theory that says the United States needs to be deconstructed, period.
Period. That's an unedited clip that I got from
I've
his
never
video.
heard that before.
And Kamala Harris, is it Kamala?
Oh,
if you listened to last week, we solved how it's pronounced.
Yes.
But now I forget. She has never come out. I looked to see if I could find her opinion of critical race theory. She wisely has never expressed it that I can find. But she did come out in 2019. She sent a tweet advocating for the 1619 Project. And I don't have time to go into what that is. Most of you probably are as familiar with it as I am. But if you are for the 1619 Project, you probably support critical race theory, which is, we've just been told, the first tenet of critical race theory is that the U.S. is irreversibly racist and must be overthrown. That guy is still on the committee or panel that is writing the curriculum for ethnic studies in Minnesota.
As an appointee of vice presidential nominee with
Yes.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and he has
Tim Walz.
Yeah, and he
The guy is
doesn't-
leftist of left of left. We have the most radical left Democrats running. I don't even think they're Democrats. I mean, at this point,
not
they're
in the
communists.
classical definition.
No, they're not.
It's changed so much.
Unrecognizable from the previous Democrat Party. These people are tyrants.
The next clip is Kamala Harris, and we have played this a few
million
times,
times, yeah.
but it's short and sweet, and it's just important that you keep hearing it, so you're going to hear it again.
Yeah, the closer we get to the election, the more you need to.
Just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you conduct your affairs.
Sure thing.
Coming into your locked home to see
The
if...
sanctity of your locked home.
Yes,
She recognizes that your home is.
So
a
think of the
sanctuary.
implications of that. If you were on the left, I mean, first of all, we should all be against no-knock warrants. The left is way against no-knock warrants, and they're correct. They should be. This goes way beyond a no-knock warrant because they're not suspecting that you've done anything wrong. Like, at least with a warrant, there's a pretense.
At least with a warrant, you go to a judge, say, Judge, I have probable cause to believe that Baldy is conducting some sort of illegal operation.
But here, the whole
Yeah.
point of crashing in your door is to see if you're being safe and
That's it.
responsible.
And
How
it's illegal.
How could anyone listen to that and not be horrified? How could anybody listen to that
I
and
mean,
vote for her?
How can I'd love to hear from somebody on the left, and I have yet to hear from them. I asked for emails or any comments on the Facebook page.
Now, you're going to get nothing
How
but
can you
crickets.
defend?
They can't.
You cannot defend what she
But
is
they can
saying.
vote for her. That they can do.
Yeah.
All right, we're down to our last couple of minutes. I wanted to play one more. Now, this one goes back to 2012. The reason I want to play this one is because in the next segment, we're going to play some Donald Trump in his own words. And if you think that some of what he has to say is bad or whatever, we want you to compare it to the things you're hearing in this segment. The next one is horrific. The next one is Robert Gibbs. He was Barack Obama's press secretary, and he was pressed on the death of a 16-year-old American citizen that was killed by a drone strike that was approved under Obama's plan.
So you're saying Obama approved an execution of an American who had no charges against
Well,
him.
they
And
deny
was
that
16.
they deny that he was targeted, but this is a 16-year-old kid born in Denver, not suspected of any wrongdoing, and he was killed in broad daylight.
Do you
just
think
having
that the
lunch.
killing of Anwar Awlaki's 16-year-old son, who is an American citizen, is justifiable?
I'm not going to get into Anwar Awlaki's son.
It's an American citizen that's being targeted without due process of law, without trial, and he's underage, he's a minor.
I would suggest that you should have a far more responsible father if they're truly concerned about the well-being of their children.
Oh, okay. So you can execute a child because we think his father's not responsible.
Apparently
That's probable
so.
cause for
And
Obama. Yeah.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know, Mr. Constitution, right?
Yeah.
And this
So-
is all from the party of democracy, protecting democracy.
Right.
Honestly, there
And, you
are
know,
tyrants.
I have brought this up to people who decry Trump at every turn, and I come back to the death of
Always.
this poor kid. His name was
Abdul
Rahman
Al-Awlaki.
Al-Awlaki. He was a 16-year-old child born in Denver, was murdered in Yemen while he was just at an outdoor cafe. Nobody's even heard of this. These people on the left that can't stand Trump, they love Obama. Obama killed this kid.
And let me tell you, Obama better hope the immunity decision holds up.
We'll be back in a few minutes. As Tom Coates, Michelle Godin, Baldy and The Blonde.
Welcome back, all you freedom-loving New Orleanians and elsewhere patriots. This is Baldy and the Blonde. I'm Michelle Godin, along with Tom Coates. We are exploring issues of liberty around the country, and if you'd like
and
to
tyranny.
and tyranny mostly, sadly. If you'd like to follow us on social media, follow us on X at Baldy Blonde, and that's an E on the end, BALDYBLONDE. Also join the Facebook group, The Baldy and the Blonde Radio Show, and come to our website, baldyandtheblonde.com. Continuing, Tom.
So this segment, we're going to play Donald Trump in his own words. The last few shows, we've played some leftists, we think some bad players. In their own words, we want to play Trump in his own words. And the reason that we started out the show with that first segment was we found the worst or the most controversial things that Trump has said and the left has spawned.
Yes.
Right? I challenge you, listen to the worst of the worst that he said. It's nowhere near as bad as the least of the worst of the things you just heard in that first few minutes of the show.
Well, also, it's important to play the complete clip of what Trump says because that's never what happens on the mainstream media. They just
Well, they'll play some
twist it.
and then give a spin. Notice when we play that stuff, we don't have to spin it. You can hear it with your own ears.
That's why you
It's
never hear it on mainstream
horrible,
media.
correct.
You're not going to hear Kamala saying she's kicking your door down.
Yeah, right. So the first one is back at a town hall in Iowa in December of 2023. Trump was being interviewed by Sean Hannity, and this is where he mentions the dictator on day one. It's obviously said in jest. Here's what you're going to hear. Hannity asked him a question about, will you do something wrong and get retribution on some of your opponents? Trump ignores that question and because he wants to talk about another conversation they've previously had about him being a dictator. And it's, again, obviously said in jest, and he brings it up his own self. Let's hear how it actually went down.
This is the one the left screams about.
Yeah, right. And they're still making hay over that. Here we go. Yeah, right. Like he
Ridiculous.
really, yes.
You are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except what?
Hannity's confused.
Except for day one.
We're not even talking about that.
I want to close the border, and I want to drill.
That's not retribution.
He says that's not retribution. That's not what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
he's just, that's
And
what
he-
I want to do on day one. If
Right,
it makes
now-
me a dictator,
Okay,
okay.
now, all right, now here comes some
It's
clarification.
ridiculous.
We love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, other than day one."
So then Trump refers back to probably a conversation they had in the green room and laughing about being a dictator.
Yeah.
I'm making this up. I'm guessing, but it is what it sounds like from here. He says, are you going to be a dictator? Referring to a previous conversation. He goes,
course.
well, yeah, but only on day one. And what did he talk about wanting to do? Close the border and drill.
Ridiculous.
So like some things you can do by executive order, which is being a
Close the
dictator.
border, you
Yeah.
can. That's the one thing
So
the president's
now-
supposed to do.
Okay, so you heard it your own self, and I did edit a tiny bit, but not for context.
Yeah.
So just to clean it
You
up
guys
a little
can go
bit.
check it out.
Yeah, just check it out yourself. But now let's listen to how MSNBC spawned it. And there's millions of other examples, but I could only play a few. Here's MSNBC.
Donald Trump reacting to reports about what a second term would look like and concerns that he would govern as an authoritarian. Donald Trump is no longer merely suggesting he'll be a dictator should he win a second term. Now, he's just coming right out and he's saying it. These aren't hints about what Trump will do in a second term. They are promises.
Who wrote that line? That's so corny. Listen to this.
Serial killer. You never have a serial killer out on the street and say, hey, you're going to kill again? It's like, only day one. I'll only eat people on day one. Then after that, I promise you can...
Day one, my priorities are the border.
I don't know what's going on with those sound clips. I test them, they do fine. I come on the air and they panic. So sorry about that.
Well, you got the gist of it.
Yeah,
the gist of
it was
the
what
guy is making a joke, and MSNBC comes out with their insanity,
and they still talk about it.
And honestly, we do not have a media. At least if we didn't have X and we didn't have alternative media, you'd never hear the whole clip. Never.
Well, and you don't get to hear the whole clip with us because apparently it malfunctions.
Apparently,
All right, the next clip is, let's see. This is Trump at the January 6th, 2021
inciting
speech.
the...
Here's how he incited the right. Here, let's hear what he says.
Come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country.
Well, you heard it, peacefully and patriotically. And I did read an essay saying, well, yeah, sure, he did say those words, but during the rest of the afternoon, he used the word fight several times. But come on. He said straight up, go peacefully, and he didn't. If he incited something, don't you think he would have been charged with it?
Well, yes, and not one person has been charged with insurrection.
Right.
Not one.
No. So
because
check
that's
this.
not an insurrection. It's a riot that got out of hand because Nancy, as she said, failed to procure the National Guard.
Yeah, now here, I've got a few quotes. These are from transcripts, interviews by the Department of Defense Inspector General. Just one is from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He said, on January 3rd, the president says, hey, there's going to be a large amount of protesters here on the 6th. Make sure you have sufficient National Guard to make sure it's a safe event. We have the acting Secretary of Defense. The president commented that they're going to need 10,000 troops the following day. And I got other quotes, but I'm not going to take up the time reading this.
And I just want to briefly say what was supposed to happen that day. Because the Democrats are always screaming, oh, they were trying to prevent the certification. No. They were going to present evidence in accordance with the Constitutional and Electoral College
You
evidence.
mean in Congress they were?
Yes.
Yes.
And everybody was going to get to see in one place on one day, and I was dying to see it, what the challenges to the certifications were. And it was going to be fascinating. So the fact that that didn't go forward because of this riot, who did that benefit? The Democrats.
Right.
Yeah, so... cui bene is the Latin term. Who benefited?
All right, so we have two more clips. Unfortunately, we have time for just one. We'll get to the other one on the other side of the break.
I say go with very fine people since they...
We don't have time.
No.
We don't have time.
Okay.
So we're going to go with the phone call with the Georgia Secretary of State.
Oh, yeah,
where they say he threatened him and was trying to steal it by telling him to find votes. Let's hear what he had to say.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
He means one more than we need.
Yeah.
Only 11,000 votes. We have far more than that as it stands now. I have to find 12,000 votes, and I have them times a lot. Votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break. We have that in spades already.
So that's all we have time for now. There's actually a little bit more to that clip. Unfortunately, we're coming up on a hard break that we have to take. But he wasn't telling them to make up votes. He's saying to
go
find them.
them.
He says there's what he really was saying was we really need only 11,780. That puts us with a victory by one. We can actually find way more than that, but we don't need you to find all of them. What he's saying is just find these and forget about looking deeper for all the others. He even said, don't even bother with looking at Dominion because we don't need them.
We don't need them.
And we will play the rest of that. This is Tom Coates and Michelle Godin. Together we are Baldy and the Blonde. We will be back in a few minutes after this break. Hey, Baldy and The Blonde are back. I'm Tom Coates. I'm here with the blonde, Michelle Godin. By process of elimination, I guess that makes me the bald one.
I think it does.
Anyway, you can check out our old shows at baldyandtheblonde.com. Those are commercial free. We have a crack team of techies we hire who, after the show, they get right on it. They actually edit the commercials out and post it to our website.
That's awesome.
We pay those guys a lot. So it should be up there tonight or first thing tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
So where we left off was with Trump's infamous phone call with the Georgia Secretary of State, where the left still to this day talks about how he threatened him. But now let's get to what Trump's lawyer had to say to close out this part of the segment.
To suggest that just 4 categories that have already been mentioned by the president that have actually hard numbers of 24,149 votes that were counted illegally. That in and of itself is sufficient to change the result or place the outcome in doubt. We would like to just sit down with your office, and we can do it through purposes of compromise and settlement, just like this phone call, just to deal with that limited category of votes. And if you are able to establish that our numbers are not accurate, then fine. This is just based on USPS data and your own Secretary of State data.
So what he said at the end was really important, that this is based on U.S. Postal Service data and Georgia Secretary of State data, and they had found something like 24-something thousand votes that are hard numbers based on government data. There was no threats. Did that sound threatening? That sounded pretty calm.
Of course not. And nobody's asking anybody to go create or falsify anything.
Exactly, and that's all the leftist media talks about now to this day.
But they lie so much.
Yeah,
that's
they do.
That's the thing. And like, for example, in the next clip, you've heard a million times them say that Donald Trump said there were fine people, including Nazis.
Yes, very fine
both
people.
sides of the argument.
And they
Charlottesville.
still make hay about that.
Yeah,
and this
and-
was back in 2017.
And what was going on there? That was where there was some sort of monument that there was, just like in New Orleans, there was a fight over whether or not a monument should be moved because it had a Confederate general. I think it was Robert E. Lee, but I'm not positive.
I think this one was Robert E. Lee.
And the issue is always you have people who believe that, for example, the Roman Colosseum killed Christians by having them eaten by lions, but it's still there, even though we would never do that now. And it was despicable because it's history. So you can always denote historical places with plaques that, obviously we don't do that anymore, but instead they blew it up as though he had said Nazis were fine people. Tommy, gonna have
That's
to
what they said. Now, this is a few minutes long, not quite 3 minutes, so hang in there, but we want you to hear the entire quote, and then you'll wonder how it is that the media still is able to get away with spinning 8 years later that he says that they're Nazis and white supremacists are very
and let me
fine
just,
people.
before you let it roll, that the so-called moderators in one of the debates did not fact-check Miss Harris when she said the lie again.
All these years later. All right, here we go.
It's not even debatable.
You're putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. You had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly? I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day it looked like they had some rough, bad people. Neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this. There are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment.
How could they possibly spin that?
Because they're liars from the beginning, like their father below.
This is like their father below. But to this day, and that was in, now I lost my notes, 2017?
It couldn't have been more clear.
It couldn't have been more clear. But they take...
And he actually specifically condemns neo-Nazis and white supremacists.
A few times.
Exactly.
But he said the words, very fine people.
On both sides, because there were.
Yes, and they still run with it. It's a joke. So I challenge you to listen to the...
It's diabolical. I mean, it's just terrible.
Listen to the first segment of the show. Listen to those quotes. And the first few shows, you take any of those quotes from the left, progressive Democrats, whatever you want to call them, you take the least offensive of those, compare them to the most offensive of what you just heard with an honest listening. Trump has never said anything remotely like some of those quotes we heard from the left.
And I'd like to get into the bigger picture. And I know it's probably not something we planned on doing, but what are they trying to do? Why would you want to divide this country like that? Why can't these people who hate Trump just concentrate? I don't really even know why they do, because they used to love him, but somehow they hate him. Why can't you concentrate on why? Why don't they just say, we're for an open border? He's not. We're for more taxes. He's not. We're for war. He's not. Why do they have to make up this racial neo-Nazi divide, which just makes everyone upset? And it's not true.
I think it's because you want open borders and you have open borders. You just don't say you want them, and you lie and say that the border is secure. And then for generations, we've heard politicians of all stripes talk about their stance on war, that it's they're anti-war, but we're always at war. And
always.
Right, and we need to have fiscal responsibility, but we never have fiscal responsibility. So they say one thing so they can just keep doing the thing that they truly want to do.
This is a personal demonization and a what I consider to be an evil effort to divide the country.
Well, do you heard
on false grounds? It'd be one thing if he really said what they said. If he really said neo-Nazis are fine people, right, well then go get him. Absolutely, I would understand the demonization, but it's a lie. Why do they do this? Why? Why can't their arguments stand on their own 2 feet? Why do they have to do everything they can to destroy this country?
Well, because that's what their goal is. You heard that. You heard that, dude.
Exactly. Country's got to be deconstructed, and it's got to go. Yeah.
Right. What did Obama say? Now, he never said that, of course, that he wanted to destroy the country, but he wanted to fundamentally change it.
Nobody asked him, what do you mean by that, Barack?
Right. But now we hear from just go back and listen to that quote from the first segment from the critical race theory guy. What's his name? Brian Lozensky, who's still writing the ethnic studies curriculum in Minnesota, where Tim Walz is governor, and could kick him off of that.
That's right.
Right? Or at least wag a finger at him and say, shame on you. Doesn't even do that.
Nothing. And this guy said the United States must be overthrown. Now that is
and if you just
a call for insurrection. Actually, because insurrection is to overthrow the government.
That's what he's calling for.
Yeah.
And he said straight up that critical race theory is that.
Just, really bewildering. And I think that something is really wrong with the left because they lie so much. I just don't get it. And you never hear them say, what do they stand for? Other than we hate the orange man with lies attributed to the orange man.
Other than the overthrow of the U.S. government?
Yes.
Like we just heard. Now, if you just tuned in and you think that's hyperbole, it's not.
It's
just
not.
go back and go to baldyandtheblonde.com later on and listen to that first segment, and that's what he said.
I mean, why didn't anyone question Obama just like they don't question Harris? What did you mean by fundamentally change? Because we are following the Saul Alinsky playbook, and in my opinion, these are communist.
Well, you know the answer.
Following the Chinese model.
You know the answer to your own question. Why don't they? They're all part of that same.
They're part
team.
of it. Exactly.
I mean, that might sound crazy and conspiratorial, but isn't it obvious?
I mean, what else?
When you hear these sound clips of Trump, and then several years later they're still straight up lying about what he said.
I mean, they let it stand in the debate. They let Harris say that, and she is a liar. That is a bald-faced lie, and she knew it.
Sure. And so did the moderators, so do all the newscasters, the producers, the owners of the stations, the owners of the newspapers.
I mean, it is despicable.
They have their goals, and it is the destruction of the United States as we know it.
People better vote.
And they don't care, lie, cheat, steal anything. I don't think they know much about taking the moral high ground.
No, that's absolutely true. That's for sure.
Anyway, this is Tom Coates, Michelle Godin, Baldy and The Blonde.
You can follow us at Baldy Blonde on X and visit our website.
Over and out. We're going to break. Back after this. Baldy and The Blonde are back. This is Tom Coates and
Michelle Godin.
Well, I'll let you speak for your own.
I'll speak for myself. Since the theme of the show has been in their own words.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. In my own words. Right. That's who I am.
Introduce your own damn self next
Blondie,
time.
Michelle Godin.
All right. So.
Fired up, Tom.
You should have heard it during the break. I said stop talking and save it for the microphone.
I'm just so mad at it because the more you think about it, when you listen to what Trump actually said, specifically and importantly about fine people, the nerve, the absolute disgusting nerve of the media to constantly pretend that he said white supremacists and neo-Nazis were very fine people when he said the opposite. So just sit back and say, why do they do that? Why?
Why do they gin up this?
Yes.
Okay.
They're looking for chaos.
I do believe that.
What have we done in countries all around the world with our beautiful CIA? We go inject chaos into the country so that we can take over.
That's a good point.
What is it called? The Color Revolution?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for.
Pretty much what Mao did in China. And they love Mao.
Yes.
When they're not wearing their Che Guevara beanies, they're wearing, their little Mao suits, or they're, lauding Fidel Castro. These are these people's heroes. These are scary people. These are not your father's Democrats. These are communists.
Yeah, you're right about that.
They're all screaming to censor you. They go to court and swear out warrants against a man running for president under false pretenses. They spied on Donald Trump. And now they know it was true. And do you think 60 Minutes apologized? No. And I don't care about Donald Trump right now. I'm talking about the United States of America. It is out of control. It is out of control. This is a lawless, crazy country right now.
I agree. It's not about Trump.
It's unrecognizable.
It's way bigger than that.
Way bigger.
Yeah.
Better vote for the orange man, though. He is all that stands between us and, bad times. Because if they win, it's over. X is going down because they're already trying to get rid of Elon through pressure in Brazil and in Europe, where they have
in
no
the
free
UK,
speech.
yeah, big time there.
Not just UK, all of Europe, because they have laws which allow for censorship, so they can enforce them against X in Europe and in Brazil and take away all of his financial, because he makes more money in Europe than America.
What, you didn't see the leaked email? I think it was.
Yeah,
I don't have it
and
in
he
front
said
of me.
this is war.
Yeah.
So
specifically, the UK put him on their
hit
on their hit list.
Yeah, we got to get rid of Elon.
Yeah. Well, of course.
I mean, this is a worldwide fight for freedom. A worldwide.
If he had not bought Twitter/X,
we'd be. I mean, we wouldn't be able to. We would have no free speech. We wouldn't know anything.
We wouldn't, because all other platforms are. Here's one example. When I search for sound clips to play each week, I look on YouTube, maybe find a few here or there. Look on Rumble for a particular topic. There's 5 times as many on Rumble, which is a much smaller platform. If I Google something, might not even find what I'm looking for. If I go to DuckDuckGo, I find it. So in other words, these platforms, obviously everyone knows it, are intentionally censoring the things we search for.
Absolutely. And what they, censorship can be by omission or commission, right? Because they also choose what news to cover and what not to cover. Remember that the leading candidate for president, Donald Trump, was twice nearly assassinated. Once he was shot in the head. And there's no coverage of that. It just doesn't happen. The fact that Kamala Harris was caught hugely plagiarizing not just her book, but bizarrely she made up a story about a crime to show off as though she was some crime prosecutor. That's weird, man. And there's no coverage of that.
No, of course
except
not.
by a little, I can't think of it, and it's so wrong that I can't think of their names. It's a great little news outlet that uncovered all this plagiarism. And in any other year, I mean, before the new times that we live in with the Ministry of Truth and the Orwellian nightmare that we are in, we would know all about this.
Oh, sure.
And if Trump had done it, you'd certainly know. Or anyone, listen, I talk about Trump, but does anyone think that this would be different if, I don't know, DeSantis was the candidate?
You're right, exactly. Could have been anybody.
Like, whoever it is on the right, unless it's like Lindsey Graham or Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going after him.
And I have seen that article that you're talking about. It was a massive amount of plagiarism.
It's terrible.
Pages
really
and
creepy
pages and
stuff, though.
pages.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
she testified before. I think she testified and copied a Republican.
Yes,
from
she looked
another
at his
state's
testimony right down to
Word
the
for word.
typographical errors.
Yeah, she cut and pasted.
come
I mean, this woman is a disastrous nightmare, and because she's an empty suit and just longs for power, she is so dangerous.
I think we should kick in her locked door.
In the sanctity of her
sanctity of her locked home.
We're kidding, FBI. Jeez.
And see if she's plagiarizing. How about we do that?
Well, let's do that. And in the meantime, I guess I just think we should address the abortion issue too, just briefly.
All right, what you got?
Because they're using that to excite women voters.
Oh, yes.
I think it's really weird.
They're ginning up fears about a national abortion ban. I spent the summer in New Mexico, and the ads were all about that.
It's just absurd. The whole point of Roe versus Wade was that anyone who was a legal scholar accepted that that was a weird decision. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, okay? It was a strange decision. I cannot get into the reasons. It just was. But the real issue is whether or not abortion should be regulated on a national basis. For example, do we regulate murder on a national basis? No. That is a state-by-state issue. Do we regulate health on a national basis? No, we do not. It's up to the states, except for when we did COVID, stay home forever. But even so, that was supposed to be the states, right? So states were supposed to have their own rules because then 350 million people might be able to live together in a nation. If you are looking for the day that 350 million people are going to agree on abortion, you're crazy. Guess what? Everybody now has the right to set their own abortion laws. Okay? And it's on your conscience how you want the law to be. But don't pretend that Donald Trump or some other SCOTUS judge is in charge of abortion. You are. The people of America in their various states are in charge.
And the overturning of Roe v. Wade is what's preventing there being a national
Of course,
ban.
it's
the opposite of what the
unconstitutional.
left is trying to gin up.
They're lying because they lie all the time.
You can't
They're
have a
using
national
it
ban
to get people
if it's been
to vote.
thrown to the
disgusting.
states.
Correct.
All right. So what else you got? We're down to our last minute and 11 seconds.
Well, if you want to, that's really the point, is that there's no reason to be hysterical about abortion because you have the right to control the laws in your state.
Yeah, it's no longer in the federal government's
It's
hands.
not a federal government issue, and it's not going to be. That is the ruling of the Dodd decision. And it's despite what the everlasting liars from the left, and some on the right, too, will tell you, it's up to you what the rules are in your state. So that should not be how you vote.
Yeah, that
you
should,
want to be free is the issue.
That should not affect
if
you.
If it's your body, your choice, yeah, okay. Do you want to be locked in your house by a government that says you can't speak freely, you can't protest freely, you can't have a gun freely? That this is a government that wants to control your every move, and you saw what they did in COVID, and they will do it again, and they're proud of it.
They are proud of it.
Think long and hard before you vote, and do your own research.
You've been listening to Baldy and the Blonde. This is Tom Kowitz, and you are?
I am Michelle Godin.
We are here every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, and at baldyandtheblonde.com you can listen to our previous shows. We are over and out.